Queen Noamagbe Ewuare II is the fourth wife of Benin monarch, His Royal Majesty, Oba Ewuare II, and the Queen is also the biological sister of the Oba's fifth wife, Queen Isosa Ewuare II. On Thursday early morning night, Queen Noamagbe apparently used a proxy TikTok account named Queen Ewuare Backup and accused the Benin Traditional Council, BTC, of dishonest behavior, categorically stating, the BTC lied that Nigeria prominent social media streamer, Habib Hamzat Adelaja aka Pella, was not authorized access into the palace of the Benin monarch, where she accidentally met Pella and gave him a motherly welcome as the Queen of the Oba, an action the BTC has alleged she breached the palace protocol, hence, she risked being removed or sent packing from the palace, according to Queen Noamagbe in the apparent TikTok social media proxy account. Pella's visit to the palace is a mere cover-up, that a lot has been happening behind closed door. She supported her claim with a document that suggests the Benin Traditional Council was aware of Pella coming to the palace, and the document dated February 23, 2026 indicated that the BTC received and acknowledged the letter of Pella's planned visit, but, if the BTC actually wrote back to Pella to notify him about the acceptance or rejection of his request was not stated, this, the president of Iguabasanmi movement worldwide, Asaro Culture Iamu, counted the document and said, the receipt of letter at any institution registry doesn't amount to approval. However, the moment the letter is received at our revered palace registry, it's forwarded to the private office of Oba of Benin, His Royal Majesty, Omo Noba Nedo Uku Akpolokpolo, Oba Ewuare II. Oba of Benin will then instruct the Secretary of Benin Traditional Council, BTC, to either write formally or call those seeking for approval of their letters, especially as it's relate to royal visitations. Those who lured and deceived Pella without the approval of Benin Traditional Council, BTC, are the real problem. For the avoidance of doubts, Queen Noamagbe may not be first Oba wife to be sent packing from the palace over breach of access into the monarch palace. The Oba eldest wife, Queen Irogama Ewuare II, had been sent packing from the palace simply because one of the biological children of the Oba entered the palace allegedly in a manner the Oba did not like. This was made known in a reactionary public letter issued on December 30, 2025 by Prince Ezelekai Ewuare II, the Oba's eldest son, who is believed to be the next Oba of Benin. According to Prince Ezelekai, I want to make it very clear. My mother did nothing wrong. 6 months ago, my youngest brother allegedly barged into the palace wanting to see the Armed Forces of Nigeria. AFN has stated that its men resisted and pushed back a group of Islamic State of West Africa province, ISWAP fighters at Malam Fatori area in the Abadam local government area of Borno State early morning on Wednesday, after the ISWAP fighters launched a simultaneous 5 multiple and separate offensive attacks against the troops of the Joint Task Force, Northeast Operation Hadankai. The Nigeria Army supported its press release with a video of dead bodies of the suspected terrorists, some of whom, according to the military authority, were well-known ISWAP commanders who led other terrorists to carry out the attacks. Lieutenant Sani Uba, the Media Information Officer, Joint Task Force, Northeast Operation Hadankai, in a press release issued a few minutes ago, noted that Niger Republic Air Force supported in the killing of the terrorists and other defensive offensive military actions that finally forced other surviving terrorists to withdraw and flee in disarray. Accordingly, the press release reads verbatim thus: troops of the Joint Task Force, Northeast Operation Hadankai, OPHK, in the early hours of Wednesday successfully repelled a coordinated and simultaneous 5-pronged terrorist attack on own positions at Malam Fatori in Sector 3. The terrorists, who advanced in large numbers on foot and deployed armed drones in a desperate bid to breach the defenses of locations of troops, particularly along the frontage of Bravo Company from the Duguri General area, were met with overwhelming resistance. Having maintained full situational awareness of the battle space, troops had anticipated the attack and deliberately prepared an offensive-defensive battle designed to decisively defeat and annihilate the assault elements. Through disciplined fire control, coordinated maneuver and superior tactical execution, the attackers were engaged, disrupted and rooted in disarray, with no fewer than 80 terrorists neutralized during the engagement. Additionally, the firefight was further reinforced by precision of close air support from the air component of Operation Haddon Kai, complemented by rapid strike passes from allied Nigerian air assets, which compounded the pressure on the fleeing insurgents. Exploitation of the engagement area led to the recovery of a substantial cache of weapons, ammunition and combat enablers, including 52 AK-47 rifles, 8 PKT machine guns, 7 RPG tubes, 5 general-purpose machine guns, GPMGs, over 3,000 rounds of assorted 7.62mm ammunition, 21 RPG bombs, 9 locally fabricated IEDs, multiple magazines, communication radios and components of armed drones deployed by the terrorists. Despite the scale and intensity of Nigeria, military authority has placed the citizens and residents in the West Africa country on a high alert over increased security threats in the country, following apparent multiple suicide bombings on Monday in the northeastern state of Borno State, wherein the Nigeria police force confirmed 23 people were killed and 108 other persons sustained injuries when bombs exploded almost at the same time at 3 different locations in Maiduguri, the state capital, at locations which included the post office area, Monday market access and the entrance to the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, UMTH, during the period of iftar, breaking of fast, hours after the Borno State Command of the Nigeria Police Force had reported earlier on Monday that suspected Boko Haram, ISWAP terrorists made an attempt to infiltrate into the state capital with sporadic gunshots and explosions at Ajulari Cross, Kofa area of outskirt of Maiduguri Metropolitan Council, MMC, and Damboa Maiduguri Road in Damboa local government area. And the latest activities and official reports indicated that the ISWAP and Boko Haram terrorists may have advanced and taken some positions closer to the state capital. This, the Nigeria Police Force said. The Borno State Joint Security Operatives has begun aggressive patrols within the Maiduguri Metropolitan Council and appealed to residents to alert the security agency for emergency response with contact numbers 08068075581 or 08023473293. Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, the Media Information Officer of Joint Task Force in the Northeast Operation Haddon Kai, in a press release on Monday, said, "The Headquarters Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Haddon Kai, OPHK, wishes to inform the general public of suicide bomb explosions that occurred at about 7:05 p.m. on Monday the 16th of March 2026, in Maiduguri Metropolitan Council, MMC. The explosions were carried out by suspected Boko Haram terrorist suicide bombers who detonated improvised explosive devices at 3 different locations within the city, namely the post office area, Monday market access and the entrance to the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, UMTH, during the period of iftar, breaking of fast. The cowardly attacks targeted crowded public areas in an attempt by the terrorists to inflict mass casualties and create panic within the metropolis. Troops of Operation Haddon Kai, in conjunction with the Nigeria Police Explosive Ordnance Disposal, EOD, team and other sister security agencies. There may be no doubt that Iran is apparently giving the United States, US a tougher time at the Strait of Hormuz, holding strong that none of its enemies and their allies will sail their ship through the Strait of Hormuz, an action that has since made the US President, Donald Trump, to make contradictory statements after the US Army obviously failed in its intimidating military campaign and destruction of the Iran naval base, airport control tower, helicopter hangars, naval mine storage, missile bunkers and anti-aircraft and ballistic missiles defense system, with a threat to destroy the oil lifeline of Iran at the Karg Island if Iran continued to block ship from sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. But yet, as at the time of filing in this report today, Iran remains deviant to US threat, with close watchers saying, Iran may not fight a traditional normal naval war with the US Marines who are currently on a high speed traveling from their base in Japan to the Strait of Hormuz, of which Over 2,500 of the U.S. Marines and sailors have been redeployed and apparently drawn from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, an elite rapid response force, and the Marines are traveling aboard an amphibious-ready group, ARG, led by the assault ship USS Tripoli, LHA-7, an assault ship that can function as a lightning carrier, carrying F-35B stealth fighters and MV-22 Osprey transport aircraft, and the assigned Marines are expected to arrive the Strait of Hormuz in a week or less than 2 weeks' time. But, currently, close watchers said, Iran is using deviant tactics like GPS jamming, swarming drones, and underwater mines to keep the U.S. Navy off balance, an action that may be the reason the U.S. President, Donald Trump, initially called on the international communities to help form an international naval coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but some European countries like Germany, United Kingdom, France, Greece, Italy, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, refused, with some heads of the European countries saying, "The war is not our war. Germany will not participate in any military activity in the Strait. Any plan to reopen the Strait won't be a NATO mission, and that the UK will not be drawn into a wider war. No sending France warships to the region until the security situation stabilizes. Italy's current naval missions would not be extended to the Strait. No Greece military engagement in the waterway." Following this, President Donald Trump, in a nationwide media chat on Monday, said, "US don't need them. We don't need anybody. We are the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them, but, it is interesting, in some cases, not because we need them, because I want." There may be no doubt that the year 2026 may not be a year of good record for some men and women of the armed forces of Nigeria. AFN, as multiple reports and official statements have confirmed that some numbers of Nigeria soldiers have been killed by Islamic State of West Africa Province, ISWAP, since the beginning of this year. Thus, the multiple reports suggest, more than 180 Nigeria soldiers may have been killed in just 73 days into this new year 2026, which further indicated that an average of 2 to 3 soldiers are being killed daily in Nigeria by the ISWAP terrorists, who appeared to have increased the daily offensive attacks on Nigeria soldiers since the US-Israel joint war against Iran began on February 28, 2026. Although some close watchers accused the Nigeria military of always downplaying or reporting a very lower numbers of troops casualties, but the Nigeria Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, stated and confirmed during the week after security chiefs held a meeting with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja that a lot of Nigeria soldiers has been lost. But he insisted that, contrary to some reports by the media, the terrorists and bandits are taking more casualties, specifically stating, "Their commanders are being killed every day. We are sure of victory." And some reports also suggest that the ISWAP terrorists are increasingly using armed drones for asymmetric warfare and high-end tech like night vision in recent attacks on military bases in Nigeria, with some foreigners joining the Nigeria ISWAP fighters to launch a Ramadan campaign that saw ISWAP overrunning some military bases in Konduga, Mainik, Jacana, and Marte areas of Borno State, with local media reports stating approximately 40 soldiers were killed, while ISWAP in a press release claimed to have killed 16 in the initial assault and another 20 in a subsequent suicide bombing. On March 4, 2026, at least 14 soldiers were reportedly killed during attacks on military bases in Ngosh and other parts of Borno State. Between February 15 and 18, 2026, multiple reports confirmed 8 soldiers were killed and 23 injured at a base in Cross-Kawa in the Kakawa local government area of Borno State. Another 6 soldiers were reportedly killed in Bu local government area. Earlier in January 2026, at least 20 soldiers were killed in an attack on a remote base in Malam Fatori, and 8 others were killed in a separate ambush earlier in the month. This former Nigeria presidential candidate in the last concluded general elections in the West Africa country, Peter Obi, in a worded statement during the week, said, "Our nation is clearly under siege, and the scale." Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the state of Israel has a lot of organized plans of what yet to be done in Iran, specifically saying, regarding what we will do next in Iran, we have an organized plan with many surprises to destabilize the regime and enable change. We have many more targets, and I will not detail them here. Benjamin Netanyahu stated this on Saturday, a day before Mojtaba Khamenei was officially and publicly announced as the Iran's new supreme leader in Tehran's Vanik Square on Sunday, with residents in Middle East reporting with videos that Iran unleashed some numbers of massive waves of Fateh 2 hypersonic glide missiles straight at Israel shortly after the announcement of the Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, many believed to be much more aggressive than his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The announcement of the new supreme leader was made known after days. The US President, Donald Trump, stated that the US will have a complete control of Iran and determine its leadership, which in one of the occasions, President Donald Trump stated verbatim that, well, most of the people we had in mind are dead, we had some in mind from that group that is dead, now we have another group, they may be dead also based on reports. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, in a nationwide message to the people of Israel on Saturday as made available by the Office of the Prime Minister, said countries can now see the hypocrisy of the United Nations, UN, following the US-Israel joint war against Iran, saying, the war is changing the face of the Middle East, and in his words, Benjamin Netanyahu said, at the same time, we brought all of our hostages home, struck the centers of terrorism in Judea and Samaria, climbed to the peak of Mount Hermon, and created buffer zones in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza, as I promised you 2 days after October 7th. We are changing the face of the Middle East, but we didn't just change the Middle East. First and foremost, we changed ourselves, because after the great disaster of October 7th, I decided to lead a polar shift, powerful actions one after another, proactive and surprising actions, actions that dramatically change the balance of power between us and our enemies. The countries around us see the hypocrisy of the UN, which condemned us without reason in our just war against Iran's murderous proxies in Gaza, yet that same UN did nothing in the face of the mass slaughter in Iran. These countries, which were attacked by Iran, see the weakness and feebleness of leaders in the West who simply abandoned them. While Khamenei and his murderers slaughtered tens of thousands of Iranian citizens, where was the UN? Where were many countries in the West? And where was the international media that constantly condemns us with fake news? They were nowhere. Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, has said that Iranian soldiers are currently waiting for US ground troops to invade Iran, saying, the Iranians are prepared for any scenario. According to Araghchi, Iran is confident that its soldiers can confront US ground troops, and if the United States actually decided to begin ground troops invasion in Iran, it will be a disaster for the US because we know we can handle them, adding, Russia and China are supporting Iran in the ongoing war with the US and Israel politically and otherwise. And shortly after the Iran foreign minister made this known in an exclusive interview with NBC News Media on Thursday, the U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, visited the U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM headquarters at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa area of Florida, apparently for a high-level briefing and next plan of action discussed with the CENTCOM commander, Admiral Brad Cooper. This, local media in Iran reported on Friday morning that the spokesperson for the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, IRGC, Brigadier General Ali Mohammad Naini, says the Iranian armed forces are ready for a long war to punish the aggressor. The war, which began last week Saturday, has led to the deaths of over 1,300 people in Iran, 12 in Israel and 6 US soldiers. According to the Iranian Red Crescent Society on March 6, 2026, over 1,332 people have been killed in Iran since the start of the war on February 28, 2026. Hengor Organization for Human Rights, in an earlier report in the conflict on March 2, the Norway-based NGO stated that at least 1,500 deaths, specifically identifying 1,300 Iranian military members and 200 civilians among the fallen. While the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, confirmed that Of the more than 1,300 total fatalities, at least 181 are children. This includes approximately 175 children killed in a single strike at a girls' primary school in the Manab area of Iran. Foundation of Martyrs and Veterans Affairs, the official Iranian government agency, reported a death toll of at least 1,230 as of March 5. On the side of Israel, Magen David Adom, MDA, Israel's National Emergency Medical Service, confirmed 9 fatalities specifically from a direct ballistic missile hit on a public shelter in Beit Shemesh on March 1. The Israeli police in an official police report identified 9 killed in Beit Shemesh and have noted that 11 people remain missing as search and rescue operations continued. Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv confirmed the death of a 102 United States President. Donald Trump, in a nationwide broadcast issued a few hours ago over the joint Israel-US military actions in the sovereign nation of Iran, has said that many Iranian soldiers are willing to surrender in order to save their lives, but the offensive US-Israel military war or combat on Iran continued, saying the joint military operations, codenamed Operation Epic Fury, has destroyed hundreds of Iranian targets since the military action began on February 28, 2026, including the killing of the Iran supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and the new joint war against Iran has resulted to the killing of more than 200 Iranian civilians and military personnel, with thousands of people injured, while over 12 persons have been killed so far in Israel, with estimated 500 people sustaining injuries, and the war has forced Iran to launch counterattacks on US military bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, UAE. This, Iran Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had said Iran will not surrender, stating that, despite the massive airstrikes on Tehran, Iran's military capability remains intact, adding, Iran was able to retaliate faster than it did in the 2025 12-day war, and that its Mosaic defense doctrine makes it resilient to infrastructure damage. Araghchi called the killing of Khamenei absolutely unprecedented and a major violation of international law, warning it had made the conflict even more dangerous and more complicated, saying, Khamenei was not only Iran's political leader, but a high-ranking religious leader for millions of Muslims, even outside of Iran, across the region, pointing to protests that had erupted in Iraq, Pakistan and elsewhere where the leader had followers. In line with this, Al Jazeera news media also reported some minutes ago that Iranian missiles have been seen over Tel Aviv and the occupied West Bank, reportedly breaking through Israel's defense system, with Iran saying it is targeting Israeli military facilities. In the 6 minutes nationwide video broadcast, President Donald Trump called on members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards to surrender their weapons or face certain deaths, saying, the death of the 3 American soldiers killed in action will be avenged by taking more punishing actions against the enemies. President Donald Trump said there will likely be additional American deaths during the combat mission in Iran, which he said would continue until the US achieves its objectives. Combat operations continue at this time, in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives, he said in a video posted to Truth Social, without specifying in detail. United States, US government under the leadership of President Donald Trump has ordered its citizens out of Lebanon, with the non-emergency citizens specially warned to avoid traveling to southern Lebanon. Although the US Embassy in Beirut never mentioned Israel and Hezbollah possible new war in the Middle East as the reason for its action, but there are strong indications that the American government took the decision because of the possible military conflicts in the region. According to the US government, it do not want America's citizens to travel to Lebanon due to crime, terrorism, civil unrest, kidnapping, unexploded landmines, and the risk of armed conflict, stating that some areas, especially near the borders, have increased risk, while information available on Monday indicated that Hezbollah is preparing to resume retaliatory strikes against Israel by rejecting US ceasefire deal as Israel Defense Forces, IDF, continued airstrikes on Beirut. This, A joint press statement signed and made available on Monday by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the foreign ministers of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Federated Republic of Brazil, the French Republic, the Kingdom of Denmark, the Republic of Finland, the Republic of Iceland, the Republic of Indonesia, Ireland, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, the Kingdom of Norway, the State of Palestine, the Portuguese Republic, the State of Qatar, the Republic of Slovenia, the Kingdom of Spain, the Kingdom of Sweden, the Republic of Turkey, and the Secretary-Generals of the League of Arab States and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation described the current action of Israel in the Middle East as expansionist agenda, and, also on Monday, the Israel Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu appears before Israeli lawmakers at the Knesset and said Israel don't know what the days might be, but they are prepared for any scenario, adding, if Iran attack Israel, Israel will respond with a force Iranian government will never imagined. Also, Iran Observer News Media in a tweet published on Monday, stated that oil companies around the world are currently advising their staff not to travel to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, and Qatar unless absolutely necessary. It would be recalled that the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has historically involved two major wars which occurred in 2006 and 2024, and yet, possible new war remains in a state of high tension characterized by a fragile ceasefire and ongoing military operations. In February 2026, the Middle East region is currently under a fragile ceasefire that began on November 27, 2024. Yet both sides of Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon frequently report. Nigeria police force under the leadership of the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Egbetoken, has kept mum since a video went viral on social media platforms, wherein allegation of bringing people illegally to settle inside forest in Edo State was made against the divisional police officer, the DPO, who is currently serving at the Divisional Police Headquarters at Ugboha community in the Essen Southeast local government area in the state, a state that have witnessed rampant cases of kidnappings in recent time, especially since the beginning of this year, despite the fact that the Edo State Governor, Monday Okpebholo, has executed the destruction of numbers of houses or properties of apparent innocent landlords or people who may not have direct connection with the crime. It may be recalled that early 2025, the governor demolished a residential property on College Road simply because it was linked to a kidnapping gang operating in the Aduawa, Iyan, and Benin Auchi Road bypass axis, even when the building belonged to a woman based in Italy, just that, her brother, Osamede Asamota, the alleged key leader of the gang, allegedly used it to coordinate abductions. This is just one of many properties demolished by the Edo state government over kidnapping in the state, yet, records of kidnappings in the state continued to grow higher, and recent police and military arrests indicated that Edo state is perhaps under siege of foreign invaders who may have taken over larger part of the state forest to coordinate kidnappings in the state while working with some of the local residents to perpetuate the criminal act. It may be interesting to note that another set of non-indigenes of the state arrested by the police recently included two persons caught inside the specialist hospital in Auchi. The two suspects who were said to be non-indigenes of the state were among the gang of kidnappers behind the abduction of Dr. Abu Babatunde, who regained his freedom after his family reportedly paid a sum of 50 million nairas ransom after the doctor and his younger brother were abducted on January 2, 2026. While opening the gate to their residence along City Pride Road, Igbira Camp, Auchi, and unfortunately, the younger brother was later found dead on January 5 near the Orly River along City Pride Road, with police suspecting he was killed by the abductors, and the alleged illegal settlers who confessed the Ugboha DPO as their facilitator, are said to be non-Nigerians from foreign countries. According to one of the vigilantes who caught the illegal settlers, the arrested illegal settlers in the forest will be taken to the station. The vigilante member also said the illegal settlers are not Nigerians, and close watchers said people are brought in and smuggled into Edo forests illegally, and such people may be responsible for the act of day after the Edo State Commissioner of Police, Monday, Agbonika personally led troops of joint security operatives at the dead of the night to launch offensive attacks against kidnappers in the forest. The commander, 4 Brigade of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier General Ahmed Balogun, also personally led troops of joint security operatives to the kidnappers' hideouts and launched massive military clearance and offensive actions against kidnappers. Both security operations led to the arrest of several suspected kidnappers allegedly caught in the act inside the bush, with the identities of the arrested suspects indicating that most of the kidnappers terrorizing Edo State are from the far northern part of Nigeria, an observation which appeared to have challenged the public policy statement made earlier in January 2026 by the Edo State Governor, Monday Okpebholo, who stated that many of those involved in the kidnapping surge in Edo State are indigenes of the area, saying, "That may be the reason some kidnappers wear face masks." The governor made this statement as kidnapping in the state appeared to have become worse in 2026 and very rampant in a manner that indicated that an average of 1 to 2 persons are being kidnapped in a day in Edo State, as more than 60 persons became new victims of the increasing criminal activities in the state since the beginning of 2026. Like, in January 2, 2026, 2 brothers, Dr. Abu Ibrahim Babatunde, a medical doctor on housemanship, and Abu Tahir, a fresh graduate, were kidnapped at the gate of their residence along City Pride Road, Igbira camp in Auchi. The kidnappers initially demanded a 200 million naira ransom, and tragically, on January 5, one of the 2 brothers was found dead. On January 9, 2026, 8 indigenes of a Moga community in the Akoko, Edo local government area of the state were abducted from a hotel along Abilo Road. Since the start of 2026, Edo State has experienced a significant surge in kidnappings, leading to widespread protests at Ikpoma in the Edo Central Senatorial Zone, with multiple police rescue operations, including the incidents reported early February 2026, where police rescued 9 victims, including 5 children and a separate group of 14 victims. This is that, earlier on January 22, 2026, a farmer named Monday Adero was kidnapped and later rescued, and in late January, another farmer, Abraham Udwa, and his 2 wives, Brinda and Anna, were abducted from Agoro Amende community but successfully rescued by security forces. In mid-January, Ake Favor and a former student union leader were kidnapped in Edo Central. Troubled by the surge in kidnapping in the state, residents and students of Ambro. In this write-up, a legal practitioner, Njoku Jude Njoku, pinpoints some fundamentals in the judgment passed against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu by Justice James Omotosho, which convicted and sentenced the Biafra Republic agitation leader to life imprisonment, and in this press release the legal practitioner issued in late 2025 entitled, "The 24th of November 2025, the day evidence ceased to matter in Nigerian courts, judicial silence, selective justice, and media complicity," described Justice Omotosho as unprofessional, stating that the most dangerous aspect of the judgment delivered by Justice James K. Omotosho is not merely that it reached a foreordained conclusion, but that it did so by deliberately suppressing evidence he already admitted on record in his own court, thereby converting adjudication into a procedural facade. This was not an error of law or an oversight of fact. It was a calculated refusal to engage with material evidence whose evaluation would have fatally undermined the prosecution's narrative, emphasizing that this case is no longer about one man. It is about whether courts may openly disregard admitted evidence and still be treated as legitimate, and whether the media will continue to mask such conduct through silence. A judiciary that can ignore evidence without explanation has ceased to function as a court of law. A media that refuses to question that silence has abdicated its public duty. Together, they place the rule of law itself in existential peril. Continuing, in details, Njoku said, "Once evidence is admitted, it binds the judge absolutely. The conduct, protest, silence, or alleged boycott of the defendant, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, is legally irrelevant to that obligation. Judgment writing is not a negotiation with the accused. It is a solitary judicial duty anchored exclusively to the evidentiary record. A judge may reject defense evidence, but he must first confront it, evaluate it, and explain why it is rejected. Silence is not neutrality. Silence is suppression. Had Justice Omotosho evaluated the admitted video exhibit of Theophilus T.Y. Danjuma, he would have been confronted with the inescapable reality that public calls for communities to arm themselves in self-defense against murderous violence were not unique to Nnamdi Kanu, nor criminalized when made by powerful establishment figures. Proper evaluation would have compelled the court to accept that Kanu's calls for guns and bullets in Los Angeles, USA, or during broadcasts were framed as community self-defense against the ravages of armed Fulani killer herders, not incitement to lawless violence. Had Justice Omotosho evaluated the admitted video evidence of Governor Hope Uzodinma, he would have known, because Uzodinma stated it publicly.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.